Hi everybody, welcome to the Global Voices Spotlight series. My name is Tianyi Kou-Herrema and I go by TT. I'm a doctoral candidate at German Studies here at MSU, and today I will be interviewing 3 fellow Spartans who work in the field of education. And we have here Aliya and Aanchal here in the studio with me, and we will also have one guest joining us virtually, Jainisha in Texas, who is also a fellow Spartan. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Like, how did you get here? What were you doing before joining MSU? And why did you decide, hey, MSU is a great place. Let's start the next chapter of my life here.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, I come from Kazakhstan, from Central Asia, which used to be part of the Soviet Union. So when I was a little child, the Soviet Union collapsed, and I grew up pretty much in poverty because everyone in my country was poor. There were no jobs. There was no food. People were basically surviving. There was limited electricity, limited water. So as a child, I remember those systems broken, and there was basically no hope, and it was just hard environment to live in as a child. One thing that gave me hope was my school. Throughout my life, I would start with the school teachers. They had a great impact on me, because they mentored me, they invested their time, they invested their energy, they gave us love, and they just mentored us in a way to have the hope that many other environments didn't have. So in that sense, throughout my life and my career, mentorship has been really important.
I was a teacher in India for 4 years before, and I did a couple of program management roles before I moved to the US for further studies. And I think the relationship that I've built with my children and being in classrooms has always been the most important part of my identity and what I've done generally in life, and I keep that very close to my heart when I'm even working on education policy now. So making sure that our children, our teachers are centered in whatever we say and we do is an important aspect to me. Mm-hmm. And moving to MSU specifically made a lot of sense to me because it has one of the strongest international education programs in the country right now. Indeed. And also has a good focus on South Asia, which is also my area of focus. And what has personally stood out to me over the past 2 years is the intentionality that the College of Education brings into research. Mm-hmm. Like we were discussing in the past, they're really focused on teaching and learning, not just it's not just at a macro level, but trying to impact the lives of children and teachers all over the world, which was really special for me.
That's really good to hear about the College of Education is doing a lot of great work.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jainisha Chavda, and I'm an MSU alumni. I did my Ph.D. in Ed Policy from Michigan State about a year ago. I did my master's degree in international development from UK in 2014. And after that, I was working in India on different international development projects. These projects were all in very different areas, right from women's economic empowerment to environment education to housing. So very diverse projects, but there was one theme that was underlying all of these projects that I kept coming back to was education, and specifically secondary education, because I felt like for a lot of people in India, one of the major barriers why they are not able to realize their economic and social potential to the fullest is that they do not have good quality secondary education. And that's a major reason which stops them from having diverse work opportunities in the market and be career ready in the market. So I started looking for PhD programs in the US with education policy focus on low and middle income countries. And I came across Michigan State University's program, which was an excellent program, very well designed program with a very strong international focus in India. So it was a very solid match. That's how I came about to be at MSU.
Before that, I want to learn more about your research. What do you do here at MSU academically? You introduce you with your major. Can you give a little bit more concrete examples or maybe more simple explanation about what you do and how you combine that with your work?
The projects that I'm working for my dissertation is I'm looking at the global versus local forces in education policy formation in Kazakhstan. So I'm looking both at the global partnerships and global interactions that happen within the country and how those things influence the decision making of the national decision makers when it comes to education policy. Also in addition to that, I get to influence policy and work with teachers and work with school leaders and different educators and the youth students as well back home. So one of the programs that we are doing now with Dr. Alisa Morley at College of Education, we have MSU Kazakhstani Teacher Body Program, where we connect undergraduate students who are future teachers at MSU with the same cohort in Kazakhstan. And we just want the students to gain global competencies because it's believed that global competency is one of the important competency for the teachers to have to be able to pass that down to the students.
So for me, I think when I joined MSU, I was still like all over trying to figure it out. Like, you know, when you're a new PhD student, okay, where do I decide what happened? And I think I had the fortune of working with my advisor, Dr. Amita Chutkar, along with her colleagues at University of Wisconsin-Madison, Professor Nancy Kendall, and Dr. Thomas Lushtai, who's at Claremont Graduate University. Three of them were running a large-scale project in India, Colombia, and Malawi on youth lives and looking at students who actually go to higher secondary schools in like 9th, 10th, 11th grade. That's kind of a demographic. How do they even find school to be relevant? Like, what are their experiences in schooling? And that, I think, just clicked like a switch in my head. And like, I have been deeply involved in the project for a long time. And I mostly focus on India. Like, I mostly look at the India, I work with the India team there. And then we look at, like, it's a good way for me to connect with my own experiences when I grew up in India. Like, how does the high stakes examination system work there? How does that affect children? And then also, how do teachers, like, what is their workload like? And is it even in link with what the large narratives are around teacher ed to like carry that forward? And next time when I'm teaching, to like actually design my classes for undergrads in a more like suitable manner.
Thanks. And I really appreciate the angle. And I was also an IIT fellow, and I can only recommend that fellowship. And I believe like shadowing a more experienced professor, a more experienced educator, and really go into undergrad's classroom is such a valuable experience.
Exactly.
My memories of being at MSU are very fresh and very vivid because I had an excellent time there. If I look back at my life there, I remember, taking a lot of classes because I knew that this was a 5-year period for me to do whatever I wanted. And then later on, I think I would be taken over by different demands of the professional life. So I took that very seriously and I tried to maximize my opportunities as much as I could by taking courses in different departments, be it College of Education, then sociology, anthropology. So it was a wonderful time because these courses really, because of MSU's, international focus, these courses really allowed me to meet with people from different countries, different cultural backgrounds, and learn from their experiences. And I think I'm never going to forget that because I don't think this is a kind of experience I will ever have, outside of MSU.
I'm gonna ask a question that is more like kind of combine what we talk about here and lead us to the last part of our conversation about future. And how do you envision your research influencing future scholarship or interventions aimed at supporting youth well-being? Like the key term here is youth well-being.
In terms of my research projects at MSU, I worked on different projects. And in terms of youth and education, I think 3 projects really come to my mind. One is the same project which Aanchal mentioned about studying experiences of secondary education students in 3 countries. The other very interesting project I did which was my own independent project, where I tried to understand school systems in primary and in secondary education and how compatible they are with each other in India and what that means for students to transition from primary to secondary education. I also worked with my advisor, Dr. Amita Chutkar, to analyze youth essays collected from different African countries, around 750 youth essays. And these essays were actually collected by the Global Youth Enhancement Network.
So one thing that I emphasize in my work is critical perspectives. I think that coming as a scholar from a developing country, or as a scholar of color and being a woman, I do want to use my work to kind of question the power dynamics or power inequalities that exist either in international development, in higher education, in schools. And that's why critical perspectives are very important in the work I do. So I would like to question the status quo of the systems when it comes to education policy formation and implementation. And I think that one of the most important things in those critical perspectives is the student agency. Therefore, though I work in policy at the system level, I still find many opportunities to talk to the youth and talk to the students and make sure that when I talk to the educators in Kazakhstan or broader Central Asia, the student voice is included. Like I'm part of some of the consultancy work where we are putting a lot of effort on the student agency. We're creating some student-led initiatives where students can share with with the leaders of schools and policymakers what they want, what they are, what their aspirations are, and also continue the work in mentorship and leadership and teaching. I think that mentorship comes in so many different forms. It could be formal, like teaching. It could be more informal, as we, change and we adapt and we, interact with many young people in this, in this environment, being at MSU.
I really want to understand how are youth actually experiencing their schooling because of the system of shadow education, and like when are parents deciding to send their children to these classes, when are they not deciding to send them, and then what can be some ways in which this idea of double schooling can actually be figured out. And I think even with the project that I have been involved in, interview after interview, we are seeing a lot of gaps in terms of gender as well, about how female students experience school very differently from male students. And I think we need to understand those aspects as well to make sure that school's relevant and focused on all children.
Thank you for bringing it back, because I was hoping we can talk a little bit more about things you have experienced from your personal life or from your academic life. Like, what is this gender dynamic you have seen in the culture you grew up or in the field you?
So one is STEM colleges have a lot more male students than female students. Often even household expenditure on males were higher than females, which is reduced, which the gap has reduced now quite a bit. But at the same time, I think in schools, men and women are treated differently from each other. So that's something that I think needs to get understood a little better.
Yeah.
So that we can actually move towards closing those gaps. So that's important.
It happens in K-12, right? Whatever we're seeing in higher education, it's only the result of what has been built up through K-12 education.
Yes, you could say so.
Yeah.
And I think that there are many parts of this world that are still very, that include very patriarchal stereotypes or just societies. So there are a lot of things that female members of the society have to face because those are structural inequalities, those structural changes, or changes are very slow. So in a sense, we just need to understand that education, is, exists in a broader context, and we need to work I am a very great supporter of multi-disciplinary approaches when it comes to research and teaching and learning. So I think that we need to kind of join our forces with many other scholars in other fields to be able to tackle those things, because those, even though we change education systems, and let's say that there are more girls in STEM fields and we have better teachers, etc., but then they go back to the society and they still face with a lot of different issues.
Beautifully said, thank you. And let's move to the last section of this conversation or talk. As we started with hope and school, let's also talk about what are your hopes after your degree? What are your plans after you complete your degree from MSU, and how would you envision yourself being like an active member in the field you currently work in and make a difference?
Sure. So I come from the experience of international development. So I work at World Bank and OECD before I came to MSU, and I want to continue this policy work as after I graduate, whether it would be academic institution or international organization or a government position if I go back. So those things are still in process. I have a year and a half, so I don't know like physically where I will be, but I hope to continue this work, whether it comes to research, capacity building, mentorship, leadership, and teaching and learning when it comes to student agency, when it comes to capacity building of the local actors. And I still want to work in my home country, whether being here at MSU, or be here in the US or going back, and doing influence not only the school level changes, but also policy systems.
So right now I am working at the GRIB lab at University of Michigan as a research associate, and I'm supporting a project which is for professional development of teachers in different countries. Now I'm intimately looking at the work of teachers, and I'm learning a lot. It is a new area for me, and I really want to get more into it, get more deeper, and try to connect this to student experiences as well. And what it is that we learn from teaching teachers, and how do we involve students going forward in these teacher training and development processes, and try to make sure that we develop a skill set or methodology to do this, which is not only relevant to countries like the US, but also low and middle income countries. So that is an area which fascinates me, and I hope I can continue working in this area and build more work in this direction.
The other thing I think that I really want to do in like after I finish my PhD is also continue working on international and comparative education, primarily focused on South Asia, because that's the region I'm from and that's what I'm most familiar with, but also in other parts of the world, but mostly in South Asia, and work with teachers and also with students who are almost finishing school and entering college. Like that particular demographic is something I'm really interested in working with. And I still don't know how that will exactly look, like how will it translate into real life things. But yeah, that's my hope.
That's
and
the
wish.
direction
That's
you
the direction
go.
And that's the goal.
Yeah,
So,
I hear in your earlier answer you mentioned like learning is not a one-way street.
Yes.
It's not like I present you knowledge, you acquire knowledge. Is much more complicated than that, right?
Exactly.
I think it was also you mentioning that you want to learn from them. It's like this is a circle of knowledge acquisition, not like a give and take.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is the message. You maybe I don't want to interpret.
No, but that's true. I think it's a cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's not a single exchange.
Yeah, you're very passionate about like this
Hopefully, I don't know.
exchange. Yeah, I hope you bring that passion and bring that energy to your future
Thank you so
endeavor.
much.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you. And before we end today, I just want to ask you if you have any tips for our fellow international students, whether on campus or other, like in other communities. Maybe they're not at MSU, but they want to come to MSU. Like, do you have any tips for international students?
Yeah, I think that having a very open mind and just embrace the changes, embrace the new experiences is very important, because your experience would not only depend on the external factors. It's like, East Lansing or the weather or, what kind of campus we have, whether there's a coffee shop or not on, on Erickson Hall, or it was closed because of the COVID. I think that a lot of that depends on our perceptions.
Yeah.
So I think being positive and being open and embracing those new experiences is very important, because the experience is what we make out of it. So I would say as a first year student, I remember coming and it was like all very difficult adjusting to American culture and academic culture. But the more I learned and the more I was open to meet new people and just be curious about the American culture or any other cultures, I think that's something that really resonates with me. And another one that I think goes back to my mentorship model, where you always are mentee of someone and you always mentor someone, because you always can give back to your community. So I would say that what helped me was to do a volunteer service, that the more I give, the more I receive.
The good thing about universities in the US specifically is that you learn so much just by being with each other. Like it's not about any cause or something you're doing. Like I'm from India and she's from Kazakhstan and we are like close friends. And if we were in our home countries, we couldn't have ever imagined that happening probably, right?
The
Like
intercultural
the
communication.
intercultural communication and even like just those relationships, right? Like I live with a lot of families and none of them are Indian and they're literally like my family here for me. Like they really help me out with everything that I need to do, from driving me home sometimes to like buying groceries with me and doing other things, and we celebrate each other and each other's festivals and also milestones in our lives and in our PhD journey because we are with each other.
Yeah.
So I think it's difficult, but at the same time, it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
That's all.
I really like your answer. It's like you were saying, we are seeing behind each other's skin color, our religion, our cultural difference, our languages. You're seeing a person as an individual. And you see their soul, if they're kind, if they're nice, if they're friendly, and they're open-minded. And I do want to say, this country is the country where I find like people can be that. And so there's hope in life.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, and there's always hope for our fellow international students, whether on campus or off campus.
Regarding tips for international students, I really resonate with what Aanchal said, is that we need to recognize that being an international student is a very different experience from being a domestic student. There are a lot of things that we have to deal with that domestic students don't have to deal with. And so it's very important that we recognize that and we empathize with that. And we try to bring this issue up wherever we feel it has been sidelined, wherever we feel that these issues are not given enough attention. So it's very important to do that. And having a good community of international scholars around you is very comforting. That's what I found very helpful while I was at MSU. And another thing which I found very helpful was that I would reach out to my senior colleagues in the program and try to get their advice on anything that I was stuck at. And I realized that a lot of the issues that we face have at some point or the other faced by somebody else already, and maybe they have figured out a solution for it. So rather than you being tensed about it, or you feeling lost about it, it is helpful that you reach out to them and maybe see if they have already figured out a solution.
Thank you again for your beautiful stories and your explanation about your academic endeavor, and I wish you all the best. Again, thank you for being here. I really enjoyed this talk.